Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. I'm obviously going to be talking about Scream 7 today. We've got a new director. Christopher Landon will be directing Scream 7. Now there was rumours for the past 24 to 48 hours before he was officially announced, and people were saying he was starting to follow certain people on social media, and it kind of all roads led to him until eventually he let it out on social media, and then it was official that he will be directing Scream 7. Now, I'll talk about how I feel about that, and I'll also talk about Radio Silence not directing Scream 7 as well. I'll maybe talk about them first, to be honest. With Radio Silence, I was kind of excited to see them directing Scream 5 when I heard Scream 5 was coming out and they were directing, because I really loved what they'd done with Ready or Not. But after Scream 5, as good as Scream 5 was, it didn't leave a massive impact on me. I thought it was a really good film, really good solid entry into the franchise, especially being the first movie in the franchise not being directed by Wes Craven. But then when Scream 6 came along, and this isn't entirely Radio Silence's fault, that film was probably the worst in the franchise. Dialogue-wise, script-wise, it just wasn't going anywhere. They messed up a few characters as well, like Gail Weathers. She was going on a really good path, and then when Dewey died, she then went on a darker path and she was going back to her old ways again. It just wasn't the Gail Weathers that was getting built up throughout the movies, throughout the years. And obviously we didn't have Sidney Prescott back either. Some people were for it, some people were against it. So they were backing themselves into this corner where they just couldn't really get out of. And there were rumours that they were going to be directing Scream 7, which would make sense because it's their trilogy. Similar to David Gordon Green doing his own Halloween trilogy. It almost feels like now they're not going to be able to do their finale to their little trilogy that they had with Scream. How do I feel about that? I'm actually okay with it. If Scream 6 was better than Scream 5 and they were going upwards, then I would be disappointed that Radio Silence weren't directing Scream 7. But I'm happy that they're not directing Scream 7 now, because I didn't really like Scream 6, or I didn't hate it. I just thought it was good, but I wanted more from it. Now, obviously, with them off the table, who could direct Scream 7? Who would be the best choice to direct Scream 7? Now, there was numerous names going out there, and one of the names that stuck out for me at the time was Christopher Landon, because the movies that he's directed in the past, they sort of scrape along that Scream meta idea. For example, Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You. Those movies were comedies, they were sci-fi, they were drama, they were horror as well. So they had a bit of everything in them. But one thing that they did have is they kept themselves grounded, and they knew exactly what they wanted to do. They knew their target audience. That obviously isn't all down to Christopher Landon. There was obviously the writers and script writers, etc., all on board. But if he brings everyone who was on board with movies like Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, then I'm sure he'll do something really good with Scream 7. Now, he also directed The Scout's Guide to the Apocalypse. He directed Freaky as well. He also directed Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. Now, that's a very underrated Paranormal Activity movie. I actually didn't see that one in the cinema. I wasn't interested in it at all. Didn't know who he was at the time. And then years later, when I was doing my Paranormal Activity reviews, I had to review it, and I was pleasantly surprised with what he'd done. He had the bare bones. He had not as big a budget as they did before with parts 2, 3, and 4. So he was working on a shoestring budget. He worked with what he had. Everything worked in his favour after Paranormal Activity, because he could take something that shouldn't be good and he can make it really good. He'd done it with Happy Death Day, and he's obviously done it with Freaky as well. So he knows how to direct a movie. He knows how to cast people as well. And that's another question that people are going to ask. He's the director now. Is he going to bring people into the movie that was in previous films? The girl who played Tree, can't remember her name, from Happy Death Day. Could she play a role similar to Samara Weaving did, because she's friends with Radio Silence? Is Catherine Newton going to be playing a part in the movie? Would she play a main character? Would she play someone like Samara Weaving's character? Is Sidney Prescott coming back with Neve Campbell in the fold? Are we going to get Stu Macker? I know that everyone's talking about Stu still, and people are talking online about bringing Stu back. I know that Christopher Landon started following Matthew Lillard, who plays Stu, on Instagram. I don't know if he followed him just before being announced or he followed them previously. If he's just started following them now, that's very interesting, because that could mean that there's going to be talks for a return for Stu, but that's quite early at the moment. All we know now at this moment in time is there's definitely going to be a Scream 7, and Christopher Landon is officially the director. So what are your thoughts on that, guys? Are you happy with Christopher Landon coming on? Would you prefer to have seen someone else, knowing that Radio Silence were leaving? Or would you have liked to have seen Radio Silence do their third movie in this franchise? Leave your comments and opinions down below, guys. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
To get you, Barbara.
Ever play Skin the Cat?